Welcome back, everybody. It is segment one of the Chris Richman Show for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Welcome in. Appreciate you coming today. Let's go ahead and get going because there's surprisingly a lot to talk about now. A lot of it's follow-up from the previous couple days, but it's still there. So let's start with plugs, as always. It seems like lately. It's funny. The Democrats, I think they thought if they played the whole cancer card, that this whole cognitive decline issue would go away. I really do. I think somehow they thought this was going to make it go away. That, oh, okay, well, I don't understand. I mean, you saw it yesterday, right? Or the day before, where it was, oh, you guys are horrible, making fun of this poor old man who served his country, and he did the best he could, but you're making fun of him. How horrible. Shame on you, according to Harry Sisson, right? The sissy. And you hear these people, and you're like, okay, this is their play. They're going to try and make this out to where you can't make fun of Biden anymore because he's infirm now. The same way you couldn't, if you criticized Obama, you were racist automatically because, he was the first black president. The same way you couldn't criticize Hillary Clinton because she was the first serious female candidate for president. You see where this is going, right? Well, the problem is that not only has this not made the whole mental deficiency issue go away, it's made it even worse. It has, because now it's, okay, how long did you know he had cancer? So now it's not only how long did you know he wasn't mentally able to do the job, now it's what else were you hiding from us? You were hiding cancer from us. What else are you hiding from us? So this has made an already bad issue for the Democrats go even worse. And especially for the news media. So now Jake Tapper's going to have to go on and say, buy my book, and we had no idea Biden was mentally deficient, even though, it was staring us right in the face. Now it was, did you know Biden had cancer? Did anybody know? Jill Biden needs to be pulled up in front of Congress and asked about this. She does. And any doctor in the White House at the time or medical physician that Biden never saw needs to be brought up in front of Congress to testify about this. And the questions need to be pointed. They need to be put in such a way that if we are lied to, it is very obvious very quickly. That's what needs to happen, because this is just flat out stupid. This has gotten absurd. And again, the Democrats thought this was going away. They did. Let's hear Scott Jennings kind of brought this up a little bit. He posted on his X account. Let's hear what Scott said, and he got into a back and forth with one of the CNN commentators. Let's hear what that sounded like, because it is delicious.
Actually, are you arguing that Joe Biden was fine during his?
I'm not arguing that he was fine. I'm arguing that
you keep pivoting back to Trump, who's clearly fine. I'm just asking you if you're arguing that something was not wrong with Joe Biden.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because Joe Biden is no longer the president.
But he was, and that's the story tonight.
Well, no, actually, Donald, stop. Let me finish. Let me finish what I'm saying, guys. Let me finish something.
So, just because it's kind of hard to understand, just to give you an idea of what they're talking about here, this is Julie Rodzinski, and she's saying, because Trump, President Trump correctly said, how long was this covered up? How long did people know about this? And so Jennings posted, again, if you can see the screen, you can read it, but he said, the Biden cover-up is pretty bad. Democrat, but Trump. Me, okay, but the story is the Biden cover-up, right? Trump cognitive test, the Democrat replies. And me in the Ron Burgundy voice, we are laughing. That kind of thing. And he's right. Listen to this. I mean, he asks a pointed question, and she turns it into, well, Trump this, Trump that, Trump this, Trump that. We're not talking about Donald Trump. It's kind of like, it's kind of like when you go in at work and somebody screws up bad, and you say, well, that person screwed up 2 weeks ago. Okay. First of all, we're not talking about that person. And secondly, it's a whole different situation, but so, they're trying to make it out that you're being, you're isolating them unfairly, which even in this, it doesn't apply. We're not talking about President Trump. We're not, we haven't said one thing. And cognitive wise, I don't honestly think you could call President Trump cognitively impaired. He mopped the floor with Biden during the debates. I mean, destroyed him during the one debate they had in this cycle. In the 2020 debates, I would say had President Trump if he had been allowed to come off and just go after Biden, I think he probably would have destroyed him back then too. But again, I can't even imagine where you would say this is even slightly equal. And even if we were, we're not talking about Trump. So let's finish listening to this.
Donald Trump is the president of the United States. I would dearly love to see a cognitive test from him, because as somebody who's lived in the New York media market for the last 40 years, I can tell you that the Donald Trump that I knew in the 80s is not the Donald Trump that I hear today.
So your answer to the...
Okay, so let me ask you something out there. You folks that are seasoned enough to remember meeting folks back in the 80s, or maybe, you were living as an adult or a young adult in the 80s. Are you the same person you were back in the 80s? If you were, let's say 30 years old back in the 80s, are you as full of vim and vigor as you were back in the 80s? Are you, cognitively, you might be pretty sharp, but are you the same sharpness as you were in the 80s? Maybe you're more sharp. Who knows? The point is that's a stupid comment to make. This is literally 40 some years ago. Now, again, still has nothing to do with the point. Not a thing to do with the point. Jennings and the news media in general, or the conservative media in general, is saying, we're not saying Biden is the same Biden that was, elected to office in whatever it was, the 70s or 80s or whatever it was. No, we're saying, how long did y'all know that he was cognitively impaired? How long? How long was this covered up? The cancer diagnosis, the cognitive impairments, all that stuff. How long was it covered up? That's what we're asking. The rest of it's, fluff, frankly.
Cover-up is Trump.
My answer is...
Your answer to every question is Trump.
My answer
the
is
cover-up is the story tonight.
The president...
That's the story.
Yes, the cover-up is also the president of the United States, who happens to be Donald J. Trump today, is not... Yeah, you could laugh all you want.
I am definitely laughing.
You know why you're laughing?
We are laughing.
We're going to...
We are laughing.
No, we're not laughing. You don't want to answer the question, Scott.
Yeah.
You're president.
What question?
Scott doesn't want to answer the question? Oh, my dear God. Here again with liberals. Accuse the other party of what you're doing. She doesn't want to answer the question. She doesn't. She doesn't have a clue. She is stuck in a corner. And I don't blame her, because there's no answer to this question. How long did the White House, how long did the support staff in the White House, be it anybody for that matter, how long did the press pool know about Biden's cognitive decline? How long did the members of the cabinet know? How long did Kamala Harris know as vice president? How long did they know? That's what the question is. And she can't answer it, because if she answers it truthfully, she probably doesn't know. But, if it's, oh crap, we knew, back in 2019. Okay. Why did you let him run for president? If it was, well, we knew in 2022. Okay. So why didn't you advise the president at the time to step aside? Why didn't you advise him to step aside? Because he was no longer able to execute the office of the presidency, the duties of the office of the presidency, in a cogent and effective manner. why didn't you step aside and let Vice President Harris at the time take the reins? These are valid questions. And of course, the liberal media doesn't want to answer because guess what? They knew too. If they didn't know, in quotes, air quotes there, they had their suspicions. You know they did. So what, I mean, there's no good answers for this. The liberals are stuck. They are stuck in the worst possible catch-22. If they say they didn't know, then they're incompetent. If they say they did know, then they're complicit. I mean, which one is it? And if you didn't know for sure, but you suspected, why didn't you dig? Because I guarantee you, if it would have been President Trump and he was having these problems, y'all would have been digging like gophers. Guaranteed. Digging like gophers. 100%. No question about that. These guys would have been all over this, all day. 7 days a week, this would have been top story. 100% guaranteed. It's hilarious to me what they're doing. Absolutely hilarious. They cannot tell the truth. They just can't do it. Oh, it's comical. It's absolutely comical. All right. Let's move on. So we got plugs in. Let me see. Did I have another? No. Oh, well, yeah. Okay. We'll go to this next. Anthony Scaramucci, who at one point was apparently a confidant of President Trump, called him the mooch, that kind of thing, you know. And I think he has the record for shortest appointment to the White House or to a presidential cabinet or something like that. Anyway, Scaramucci, and again, if you can see the screen, you can read this. If not, Defiant L's posted this. I love Defiant L's, by the way. They just have this way of taking liberals and making them look stupid by their own words. Anyway, this was from June 9th of 2024. President Biden is in better shape than most people think, and there's obviously a lot of distorted video here on X that makes him look older than he actually looks and feels in person. When he cleans Trump's clock during the debate, it'll be interesting to see how MAGA handles that. Now, this was right before the first debate, when Biden absolutely self-destructed. So we come forward almost a year. This is Scaramucci on the 17th of May. So, May 17th of this year. Original Sin is a damning book. 25th Amendment should have been invoked. Vice President Harris, cabinet, and congressional leaders are responsible. They took oaths. The staff is easy to hate, but didn't take oaths. Terrible stain on senior leadership of the Democrat Party. Okay, so, Tony, which one is it? You talk about how Biden was in great shape. Dude, you saw everything else. You saw everything we all saw. This dude was not there. He checked out. He checked out in 2020. You can always tell. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Because I didn't ever say it with the video component here. Back in 2020, I made, and I think I was the first person to do this, by the way. At all. And I can't be the first person that noticed it, but I was the first person to comment on it. Let's put it that way. I noticed very quickly that when Biden was off, when he was not cogent, when he was not present mentally, he would look like Walter, one of Jeff Dunham's puppets. So he'd have the whole squinty eyes and the kind of, old man look. Didn't really like things. That sort of thing. Now, if you're seeing video, you can see me do that. But honest to God, Scout's honor, look on the video. Look on pictures. When you see Biden, when you see him get the squinty eyes and or he kind of looks, like that, like he's trying to remember something. That's what it was gone. And I could see it during the debate. When he got on stage, within about 5 minutes, I started to see the eyes get squintier, and I knew right there. When he gave, you could tell, when he was going to give a speech where he was cogent and on the ball, so to speak, he would look normal. He'd look like Joe Biden from, his Senate days or even his vice presidential days. But by God, when he had the Walter look, the, mean old man. And if you want to get a picture, honest to God, pull it up. Pull up Walter on one side of the screen and pull up Plugs on the other. And it is insane how close they are. It's wild. But when he had that look, you knew. You knew whatever was going on up here and maybe in the rest of his body, it had taken over. You know that whatever painkillers they were giving him. That's the other part of this too. Cancer's not comfortable. Let's put it that way. So was there pain involved? Was he on painkillers when he was giving speeches? Be it cocaine or something like that, which I'm not saying he was by any stretch of the imagination. I still think that cocaine in the White House was Hunter's. But was he on some kind of medication to kill pain, which would have dulled his senses even more? Now, Cenk Uygur had a really good point, too, and I wish I would have saved it. I thought I did. Apparently, I didn't. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see here. Let me see here. Okay, this is the one I was talking about. And I'm going to save this because this is a good tweet. Cenk Uygur said, the treatment for prostate cancer is androgen deprivation therapy, or ADT. What are the side effects of ADT? Decreased mental sharpness, loss of muscle mass, fatigue, depression, or mood swings. Was he taking ADT? Or was he, I should say, was he on, or was he using, or was he on that therapeutic treatment? Anyway, and is that what explains Biden's mental and physical condition? That's a great question. That is a fantastic question. And again, based in fact. Of course, the liberals that follow Cenk have freaked out. And I pointed that out here, as you can see from the tweets. But, what was he taking? What was he taking to deal with pain? To deal with, trying to get rid of the cancer? What was it? I don't know. Now, another thing that we have to start thinking about, and this is going to be, I'm sure this conversation, I hope this conversation is being had at the White House right now, is this. At some point in the very, very near future, let's say this cancer, this prostate cancer, takes supposedly former President Biden, and ends his life in the very near future, in the next couple months, say, okay? That would mean, or even, in a year, whatever. The point is that the funeral will have to take place during the Trump administration. So at that point, what does that look like? I'm trying to remember what Reagan's funeral looked like. I'm trying to remember who pays for those. I really don't remember, honestly. But, what will the White House, what role will the White House play in that? Will it be active? Will it be kind of just making sure that the thing can take place according to whatever, procession, whatnot, the Democrats have decided to set up, or rather the Biden family? What is the process for that? And here's the thing. I would hope that the Democrats don't turn it into a political stunt, because the last time they tried that in 2002, what was that funeral? It was right before the midterms, and they got absolutely destroyed because they turned this funeral. It was for Paul. Gosh, what was his last name? Paul something or other. Anyway, but they turned it into a political rally. And it did not go over well with the American people at all. It was, what are you doing? This is, his family sitting there. You've got, presidents and dignitaries sitting there. What are you doing? What are you doing? And so I honestly think that was one of the reasons why Puff Daschle ended up losing the not only the speakership but his election was because of that. The Wellstone, Paul Wellstone, that's what it was. I knew I'd think of it if I thought of it enough. The Wellstone Memorial. If you ever want to hear some great radio, listen to Rush from that time, right after that. It was awesome. Anyway, that's the thing, is if the Democrats turn that into a memorial, a funeral, a state funeral, and it's going to be a state funeral. All presidents are allowed to do that. It's going to turn into a cluster mess for the Democrats. Now, the Trump administration, this would be my advice to them, is get out of the way. Just get out of the way. You know, the first thing President Trump needs to do, him and Melania both, right after former President Biden, whenever this happens, if it happens during his administration, is, you know, express condolences, say, hey, whatever you guys need, you know, if you need help, we're here, we've got it, we'll help you with it, and then get the hell out of the way. Let the Democrats have it. If they don't want to invite you for some reason, if the Biden family doesn't want to invite President Trump to the funeral, that's fine. That's fine. No big deal. Let it go. Don't make this about you, because the second you do that, it's going to backfire on you. 100% guaranteed it will backfire on you. So let the Democrats do what they're going to do. If they want to have a big parade, you know, down the center of D.C., let them do it. Say, great, we'll shut down this, you know, these streets. You tell us what you need. And for all of you commentators out there and activists, so to speak, that are conservative and on the right, get out of the way. Just don't say a damn thing. You know, if they come up and say, greatest president that ever lived, say, you're entitled to your opinion. You know, if they say, well, we wouldn't be where we are, Biden was president. Well, the numbers disagree with you on that. Respectfully. I'm sorry that he is gone, but you're wrong. Don't get violent. Don't get pushy. Don't be stupid and say stuff that you're going to regret. Get out of the way. That's what I'm saying. All right. Let's take a quick music break. We will be right back, and we'll continue. All right, we are back on the Chris Richman Show, segment 1 for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. All right, let's shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about Jimmy Comey. Jimmy Comey got himself into a bit of a trouble, didn't he? Oh, yes, he did. And the only thing funnier than watching Comey do what he did is him pretending it was innocent. This was on MSNBC, forwarded out on X by Gunther Eagleman. Let's hear what Jimmy says now about his little expedition on the beach.
You were back in the middle of a political firestorm.
Yeah, for walking on the beach with my wife. So I don't know how we ended up here. It never occurred to me that it was any kind of controversial thing, but that's the time we live in.
So take me back to the walk on the beach.
So, I'm going to ask the question here. Is he that incompetent and that stupid? Because I didn't think there was anything controversial about it. But then later in the soundbite here, you'll hear him kind of contradict himself a little bit. Let's keep listening.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book, and to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions.
Okay, so now we know, and again, this was on PMSNBC. Now we know why Jimmy Comey did what he did. He needs publicity for his book. That's right, his book's coming out. So what better way to promote your book, especially to your target audience, which is liberals, than to say something so outrageous that it forces you right into the spotlight. So Jimmy Comey has learned from Trump here, because Trump, one of the things he did better than I think anybody in the history of politics was he had this ability to say something that would tweak the media or whatever, and then they'd bring him on to talk about it, and he'd use that opportunity to talk about other things. He'd address it quickly, and then he'd go on to other things. He would start advancing his agenda rather. And it was brilliant. So I think maybe Jimmy here has learned a little bit from President Trump. And, you know, he did this, again, I think quite obviously, to get promotional time for his book.
About it, and we were walking back towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers, and Patrice, my wife, said, "Why would someone put an address in the sand?" And I said, "I don't know." And
so can I take you guys back in time for just a second? Sorry to pause the bite again here. Do you remember back during the Clinton years, if you were around then, Bill and Hillary took a walk down the beach one time, and you know, this was when the Monica Lewinsky scandal was starting to kick off, right? And they had to show that Bill and Hillary were still committed to each other. You know, that there was nothing wrong in Clinton world, so to speak. You know, it was still one team. They were still the Clintons, right? It wasn't hey, you know what? Hillary's furious. She found out about this. She's kicking Bill to the curb. First of all, it wouldn't happen because Hillary Clinton wouldn't be where she is right now if it wasn't for Bill. At least the initial part of it, right? She got into politics and got the initial kick from Bill. Now, after Bill left office, well, you know, who knows? Maybe you could argue that it isn't because of Bill on that. Weird. I'm seeing artifacting on the screen there. That's interesting. Anyway, but isn't it mildly funny that they went on this walk on this beach, if you remember, and they happened to find some shells, and they arranged them in a heart. Oh. And there was this whole big thing of him, you know, of Bill and Hillary just arranging the heart. That was the big thing. Isn't it funny then that Comey just happens to find this stuff? Just happens to find it on the beach. Weird, isn't it? Let's listen to more.
Stood over it, and I said, you know, I think it's some kind of like political message. And she said, you know, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of work in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until.
So now he's blaming his wife. In essence, you know, he is very, very subtly shifting blame a little bit to his wife on that. Oh, well, you should take a picture of it. So I did. Hey, you know, this would be like Comey being Adam saying, well, Eve saw the apple and she said, oh, I should take a bite of that. You know what? You should too. Here we go.
I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy, but I took it down. I don't even.
Crazy? No, it's anyway.
If I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence of any kind.
No, Jimmy, you took it down because you got caught and you were trying to minimize damage. You were hoping that if you took it down quick enough, nobody would see it, which in the internet age doesn't work too well. The first time someone sees it and screenshots it, you're screwed. Sorry.
And then what happened?
I got a call from the Secret Service that night asking if I would speak to them about it. Of course. I admire the Secret Service. They're pros. I spoke to them on the phone. Then they asked the next day when I got home, would I be willing to come in and meet them in person at the Washington field office, which again I did, and they were pros again.
Between posting the picture
This is Nicole Wallace,
and getting a call from the Secret Service, did you have any sort of gut check of like, well, they've audited me in an extraordinary way. I was under investigation for years after he fired me. Like, you know, Did you have any regret about posting the picture?
Okay, so she's setting this up. She's basically telling him, again, this is what the media does with liberal guests. She's telling him what she wants to say or what she wants to hear, what her masters have told her they want to hear. They want him to say, yeah, I did feel like I was being profiled a little bit, and yeah, it did seem a little weird. Let's hear how Jimmy responds, though.
Well, I regret the distraction and the controversy around it. But again, it's hard to have regret about something that, even in hindsight, looks to me to be totally innocent for the reasons you said. But yeah, I didn't have a gut check. In the Trump era, I've been investigated a lot, audited a lot. And so it's not my first rodeo. I'm in some strange way the relationship he can't get over. Maybe because I've lived a happy, productive life since leaving. But this has just been a distraction in that life.
Of course you've lived a happy, productive life, Jimmy. I mean, there's a humble brag if I've ever heard one. I've lived a happy, productive life since leaving. I was FBI director. I made tons of money. I was completely, piss poor and inept at my job. And then when I left, I was the darling of the liberal media and the darling of, the liberal mainstream, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I've spoke at things. I've been paid consultant fees. I'm getting paid to be on your show right now. So yeah, I've lived a very happy life being a grifter.
Tell us about, take us through all of the ways.
Yeah, it's the rest of it's getting cut off, but it's hilarious to hear this stuff. I mean, you knew exactly what you were doing, Jim. Come on. You're not a stupid man. If you were stupid, you wouldn't have been director of the FBI. Even if you were a liberal hack, okay, you don't get to where you are by being stupid. You don't. So does anybody honestly believe what Comey's saying here at all? Any way, shape, or form? Does anybody believe this? And if so, walk me through how, because that's a bridge too far for me. And again, we know why now. We know why he did this, why he put this out there was to promote his book. Absolutely. Look at this. I mean, he got this bite here itself is 2 minutes and 20 some seconds, almost 2 minutes, 30 seconds. How long was he on PMSNBC? Talking about this? I don't know. But every second of it is basically paid advertising for his book, which, maybe a bunch of people that didn't know it was coming out that are liberals now go, oh, Comey's got a new book coming out. I'm going to go buy that. And more money into Jimmy's pocket. Congratulations, folks. You've been played, right? Oy. It is unbelievable to me. Okay, so let's shift topics a little bit here. We are going to go to our weekly segment of
Stupid Libs.
That's right, Stupid Libs. Our segments actually, of complete, utter, ridiculous stupidity of liberal men and women and students in some cases, as you're going to see here shortly, and their actions that have caused people to suffer because they're too stupid to figure out. Without any further ado, let's get into this. So this was posted by someone named Vince Langman. This, again, was on X. This woman is in an argument. The show's called At Whatever. I've never heard of it before. This was from TikTok, by the by. Never heard of this show before, but this is hilarious. They're having a debate here about suffrage. And you're going to see here that the guy, and I mean, he does bully he kind of bullies himself into it just a little bit, but the woman completely loses her cool when confronted by facts. Let's hear what that sounds like, shall we?
That women didn't have the right to vote until 1920. Women couldn't open a bank account in the United States until 1974.
When did men get the right to vote?
Oh, okay, I know this is exactly what you were talking about. This is what you're known for, is like getting people on a technicality that we don't historically know. But the answer to that is no. The answer to that
the answer is that's no?
No, the answer to that is the fact that in 1920, everyone was given the right to vote, but there were still barriers to vote for people of color.
When did men get the right to vote?
The right to vote was guaranteed to all people in 1920, according to the 19th
Yeah,
Amendment.
before 1920, were all men allowed to vote?
No.
Okay, great.
They weren't.
And then even when men's
because of
suffrage
white
was passed,
supremacy and because our system was not founded equally.
are you aware that men only got any rights to vote about a decade, roughly, before women?
That is not true. Men have been the founding fathers were all men, so I have no idea what you're talking
Well, what
about.
does that have to do with the right to vote?
The right to vote was historically withheld from men of color. It was a white...
It was also withheld from
Listen to
the
me.
general population.
Do not cut me off. Do not cut me off.
Oh,
I am in the
see,
middle
right
of
here.
speaking.
I don't care if you're in the middle of speaking. You're in the middle of a debate.
The right to vote
You don't have your TikTok mute button, sweetheart?
That was a little condescending. I'll be honest. That was a little condescending, but true. So here's the thing. I'll give you a little background. The guy in the photo or in the video here, so the moderator appears to be, I don't know, in his probably 20s or maybe early 30s at best. It looks like they're in Florida somewhere, judging by the palm trees, maybe Southern California. I don't know. The guy that was speaking is probably in his, I don't know, 40s, maybe early 50s, judging again by the look. And the woman that was speaking, she appears to be in her maybe 20s or early 30s at the latest, unless she's aged very well. She might be in her middle 30s. But so you're probably dealing with someone who is early, in terms of the moderator, probably middle to late, Gen Y / millennial, maybe even an early Gen Z. I kind of doubt it, but maybe. The guy talking is probably a Gen X or maybe a very, very early Gen Y, but more likely I would say probably a Gen X. And the young lady who, like I said, is very young, she is probably, again, a middle to late millennial. Maybe, let's see. She would be, she says she has, she'll say here in just a second, she has 4 years of college. She is probably a middle to late Gen Y, a millennial. And this is the problem. They can't handle the younger folks now. I'm talking the later Gen Ys and younger. They can't handle confrontation. When they get into an actual debate, they lose it because they can't sit there and type on the computer uninterrupted. They're actually being challenged on the fly. And you don't have the time to hit mute or, backspace or whatever. You don't have time for that. And you can't do that. You have to think on your feet. Like you look at Ted Cruz or J.D. Vance. They're very good at debating. Why? Because, and J.D. Vance is young. He's a Gen Y. He's a millennial. He's a very late or early Gen Y. I think he's 81, so first year, right? Arguably. But you look at him and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is 10 years older, I think, than J.D. Vance. Ted Cruz, Alan Dershowitz said he is he is the best student he ever had. Now that's high praise. Alan Dershowitz is freaking awesome. I would never want to debate that man. And he's ultra liberal. And I know a lot of his viewpoints are wrong in many cases, but I would never want to debate him because he knows how to get you off your game. And he's very good at it. And this guy, the male here, he got her off her game. Let's rewind it just a little bit here because I want you to hear this part. He gets her going. He stops her on, when did men get the right to vote? And she's like, oh, I've heard this. I know where you're going. You're going to get us on a technicality. So right there, he's already got her. He already got her. Instead of saying men got frankly, I'm not sure when the men got the right to vote. I'm more talking about women here. Keeping it on your track. No, threw her off there. But then once he got that hook in, he kept pulling and pulling and pulling. And finally, and she was getting more and more frustrated, and he saw it. And then he hits her with, what, you don't have the mute button, sweetheart? And he did two things there. The TikTok mute button, right? That was meant to kind of subtly insult her age. And then the sweetheart, oh man, that sent her over because then it was, okay, now you're condescending to me. And maybe he wasn't. And I think it's the right thing to do? Is it the noble thing to do? No. But you'll see it's very, very effective. This debate is over now, pretty much. So let's pick this up a couple seconds before this.
It was also withhold from
Listen to
the
me.
general population.
Do not cut me off. Do not cut me off. I am in the middle of speaking.
I don't care if you're in the...
Do not cut me off. Do not cut me off. I'm in the middle of speaking. It's over. That debate is done right there. It's done. She has lost that debate. Let's hear it again.
Listen to
the
me.
general
Do
population.
not cut me off. Do not cut me off. I am in the middle of speaking.
I don't care if you're in the middle of speaking. You're in the middle of a debate.
The right to vote.
You don't have your TikTok mute button, sweetheart?
I will not be speaking anymore until you have a conversation with him.
Well, look.
And here again, I will not be speaking anymore until you have a conversation with him. So now she's offended. She can't take it, that someone has pushed back on her. Now, aggressively, admittedly. So she turns to the moderator. And again, if you can see this on the video, I'm not telling you anything you haven't seen already. But for those of you who are listening to the audio feed, she turns to the moderator like, are you going to do something here? Okay, this is a debate. This is an open debate. I'm not going to be speaking. And you're done. You're done right there. I'm not going to be speaking until you have a word with him. Okay, so you just finished it yourself. You just lost the debate. You just showed that you can't stand up to an opposing position. You lost. You're done.
If we can, for both people, if we can allow each other to finish, even if you want to jump in, just let the other person finish speaking. If somebody's going on a monologue and they're filibustering, I'll try to get them to wrap up. But just if they're making a point, just try to let them finish.
No, I did not go to school for 4 years and build a platform to be talked to like this. So I will be walking away from the microphone right now, and I would encourage you.
Okay, so now she's trying to she's trying to credential the other person, credential check. I did not go to school for 4 years and build a platform. Okay, great. You got a business or you got a bachelor's, either a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science. Good for you, lady. Guess what? I'm willing to bet the other guy does too, and the moderator. You're trying to impress people with, I went to college for 4 years. And there's a lot of people who went to college for 4 years who are complete morons. I can tell you that off the top of my head. I'm not the perfect person by any stretch of the imagination. I've met people who never went to college, never even finished high school, who are way smarter than me, guaranteed. Rush Limbaugh, the greatest conservative spokesman, I would say, of all time. Never went to college. He went for one semester and dropped out. Barely finished high school. He knew exactly what he wanted to do immediately. He had no desire to go to school. And yet, Rush was a hell of a lot smarter than 99% of the people that told him he was an idiot. Whoops.
To get your guest under control, I'm going to take 2 minutes so you can ask him questions if you'd like, and I will encourage you to
rewind this just a little bit here.
If they're making a point, just try to let them finish.
No, I did not go to school for 4 years and build a platform to be talked to like this. So I will be walking away from the microphone right now, and I would encourage you to get your guest under control. I'm going to take 2 minutes so you can ask him questions if you'd like, and I will be right back.
Because you run the show?
Exactly, because you run the show. Now, she's a guest on this show, and she's barking orders like she runs the thing. Honest to God, if I was the moderator right there, I'd have been like, okay, so here's the thing. You don't run this show. You want to be on here. You want a platform. I'm giving it to you. If you don't, there's the door. And I would have said the same thing to the other guy. At the same time, I would have said, dude, let her talk. If you've got her on something, if you have her and you think you can outdo it, that's fine. But if she's, and granted, if she's not making sense, she's being stupid, okay, that's one thing. But this gal just shot herself in the foot. She has no credibility now. None.
I just won't be back. And
I don't give a shit.
Pardon
what do I
language.
care? I'm here to have a debate, not listen to your whining. Do you want to have a debate or not?
All right. I'm not going to be talked to like this.
Well,
so.
do you want to just take a little 2-minute breather? You want to take a 2-minute breather?
I mean, that's brilliant. That debate's over. I will not be talked to like this. Who are you? Honest to God, who is that woman? Never heard of her. I guarantee you, very few people outside of the people who maybe follow her, so to speak, know who the heck she is. I really wonder who it is. I mean, I just, I don't know. Do I think, yeah, I mean, like this one gal says, he was kind of an a-hole. Yeah, he was a little bit. Because guess what? He found a weakness and he exploited it. Is it maybe the right thing to do? No. But she fell for it, 100%. Would I do it? No. No, I would not. I wouldn't do it that way. But here's the thing. You talk about, oh, well, he was an a-hole. Okay, let's look at this, though. He asks a question, and she kind of starts amping it up and amping it up and amping it up. And she sets herself wide open for it. You want to win a debate. You want to do things. You want to come on a show and debate. You need to be prepared for this. She did not come in prepared. She didn't. She did not come in prepared for this debate. She came in expecting that her aura would overpower everybody and she would be just amazing and everybody would instantly agree with her. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. It doesn't. It doesn't work that way. So you can say, well, he was a jerk. Well, oh, there it is. Hold on. They do have a deal where it says who it is. Hold on. Let me mute the audio for you there. That way you don't have to hear the audio again. But they do have a frame here where it says who it is that's actually debating here. Let me put it to you this way. To me, this gal, okay, rage quit. It doesn't say. It's someone named Andrew Wilson is the guy. Now, do I think Andrew Wilson should have treated her that way? No, I don't. But at the same time, again, you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. Sorry. All right, we spent a lot of time on that, guys. Sorry. But it's illustrative of what not to do, okay? If you want to go on to a show, if you want to go on and, be the big person, you're going to get challenged. Okay, moving on to the next topic, or the next segment of our Stupid Libs deal here. This was, of course, in Berkeley, California. Black, brown, Asian, and apparently some white students as well united to prevent white students from entering campus. I'm not going to play the audio because there's commentary on it, first of all, and it was posted by somebody named The General. But there's commentary, and I don't know who originally posted it. I don't want to not give credit there. Let's put it that way. So whoever you are, credit to you. But anyway, these folks, first of all, they are at the main entrance to the college, it looks like, and they're blocking this. And they're saying that it's basically a, alphabet soup and, anti-white thing, which, by the way, is the exact same thing they're supposed to be fighting against. They're being racist by saying they're not racist. Huh. And then after they get removed from there, they go over to one of the stores and all that stuff. So this is the thing. If you are, and we've talked about this, guys, but I'm going to say it again. If you are promoting anti-racism by being racist, in other words, if you're saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to promote DEI, right? So I'm going to hire more black people, more Hispanic people, more Asian people, more alphabet soup people, okay? More alphabet people. I'm going to hire that. Okay, so then you're being, you are the one who said that are being racist. You're being sexist because, you probably include women in there too. I'm going to hire more women than I will men. So you're being racist, you're being sexist, you're being homophobic because you're discriminating against straight people, so-called straight people, and every other thing out there. Instead of saying, which you should say is, you know what, I'm going to hire the best candidate, and then doing everything you can to do that. Removing race. I would honestly, I always think it'd be funny to run a business and to have people come in And the only thing that they would have to put down would be, I'd hand them a paper to fill out, or I'd have my office staff, one of the two, and it would have numbers. Wouldn't have where to put your name, wouldn't have where to put anything. It would have a phone number, which I wouldn't be allowed to see, basically, as the boss. And I mean, you could fill out the name and all that stuff, but I would have that on a separate sheet of paper, the name, the phone number, the email, whatever, however to contact you best. And that would be on one sheet of paper. You turn it over, and all it would say is list your, previous places of work, list why you want the job, and list why you would be the best candidate for this job. And I would go through that. And if at any point I saw someone say, well, as a woman, as a man, as a black man, as a white man, as an Asian man, as a, same-sex attracted person, as a straight person, whatever, if it had anything to do with something that wasn't directly related to the job, instantly goes into the discard pile. And if all of them go into the discard pile, then I would say, okay, I want these folks come back in. We're going to do a second round of interviews. I want it made very clear I only want job-related information. And when it comes to why they should get the job, it needs to be strictly job-related, nothing else. Now, I know that I would have to, you can't do that because of federal laws, this, state laws, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Why do you think those state laws and federal laws are there? Do you think they're made to make us more equal, quote unquote, using the air quotes again? No, they're there to divide us. That's the whole point of that stuff, is to divide. It's not to make us equal. It's not to make, ensure equality of any sort. No, it's to divide. That's what it is. So just remember that. And here again, these folks trying to do this, do they understand what they're doing? Do they understand the harms they are causing? I don't think they do. I don't think they get it at all. I think they are skulls full of mush, as Rush used to say. And they're doing what they were fed for, or fed to. They're doing what they were taught to do, what they were fed. They were fed a steady stream of, if you are any other color than white, you should have everything. If you are white, you are a repressor, you are this, you are that, you are the other, which is utter bunk. Okay? But that's what they were fed. So that's what they're acting on. How do we stop it? Education. I mean, real education, not what they're offering at UC Berkeley. Because UC Berkeley is out in the woods. They're crazy. There's a reason why the nickname is Berserkly. Just saying. All right. Let's see here. Oh, speaking in the college, let's stay in the college realm here for just a second. So this is supposedly, and I haven't verified this, but it's from one of my favorite accounts on X now called Retard Finder. And this person's name is Santa Ono, who apparently is the sole finalist for president of the University of Florida. I sincerely hope that's not true, because go ahead and let's take a listen to this gentleman, shall we?
Systemic racism is embedded in every corner of any institution. And so the only way to solve it is to have everyone doing their part. First, being truthful about the fact that there is racism. But second...
Okay. It's imbued in every part, in every institution, really. So you were racially profiled against. Man who is wearing a very nice outfit, who is sitting in a very expensive area, and who is up for a very, very high-paying job as the president of one of the I would say one of the better colleges in terms of football, at least, but a very high-profile school. Let's put it that way. You're a finalist for the president of University of Florida, and you think that's because of racism?
And actually, really looking at themselves inside and asking what parts of me are racist, and what steps do I have to take to move beyond that? Everybody has implicit bias. Okay,
so this is something that drives me absolutely nuts, and we'll finish this in just a second here. This is something that drives me bat guano crazy. Everybody has inherent bias in them. Okay, so let's make a real quick observation here. There is bias in terms of active intent. And then there's bias, which is stuff that we've learned over hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, that we can push beyond. So, for example, people say, well, you don't like being around black people. You know, let's say you're a white person. They say that about you, okay? How did that person grow up? If that person grew up mostly around white people, okay, the first time they are around a black person, never having seen a black person before, there's a chance they may not be very comfortable. Why? Because it's different. Okay. This goes back to when we were running around, chasing animals, you know, nomadic hunter-gatherers, that kind of thing. Different was bad because different could kill you. You know, if you walked up and let's say you had a dog, okay, and all of a sudden you see this other dog and you think, wow, there's another dog. But, this one's different. This one's bigger. This one is running around with a group of other dogs. And I'm getting the feeling that this one maybe isn't going to be very friendly to me, unlike my dog here. Well, of course, that other dog might be a wolf. And guess what? They might be hunting you, the pack. So if you take that into account and you say, maybe I shouldn't be here. You know, same thing with, when you were, again, you're running around and all of a sudden you see other humans. Okay. And you watch very carefully because those other humans might want to kill you. They might want what you have. If you, went out and killed an elk, for example, this other group of humans might hurt you to take your elk. Now, again, this is this natural distrust of things that are different from us, different from me. That is ingrained in our DNA for, from millennia, from thousands of generations, if not millions. Okay? But definitely thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever. Now, we can move beyond that. Definitely we can. But it's when you say, here's the difference. It's when you say, I don't like that person because of the color of their skin. That's racism. And guess what? That is not inherent. That is not. Being cautious, wanting to be with people who look and sound like you is not racism per se. It's not. It is, again, it goes back to that comfort zone. But if you are unwilling, once you've realized what that is, and you've realized, okay, that person over there, okay, has a different color of skin than I do, but they're really cool. They're into the same things I'm in. They are American like me. If at that point you say, well, but I don't like them because they're black, that's racism. That's a problem. That is not bias per se. Now, on the other hand, if you say, you know what, I don't care what the color of their skin is. This person is awesome because we have a lot of things in common. We do have some differences, but you know what? We can work through it. Okay. That is something we as humans have developed over a lot of years, where we've realized that, okay, here we are with this. We've realized that, humanity we don't need to be scared of each other per se. Because let me tell you right now, there's a lot of white people out there. If it was just race-based, there's a lot of white people out there that are clowns. I wouldn't trust Hillary Clinton at all. If she said, hey, I see your car, if she pulled over next to me and said, hey, looks like you have a flat tire. Yep, sure do. Changing it right now. Oh, well, you want to just borrow my car? I'd be a little concerned. I would take it, but I would be very cautious given what I know about Hillary Clinton and how people that know her have a strange way of ending up dead. That's not because of the color of her skin. That's not because she's a woman. That's not because she's straight. That's not because of anything except for the fact that her past behavior makes me leery of her. So I find Mr. Ono's argument here completely lacking.
An institution can only change if everyone takes ownership of and responsibility for changing the place.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. However, you are assuming a low level and saying that everybody is at that level, which is stupid. You should assume this. And when people don't achieve that, when they don't meet that minimum requirement, which is up here, that they are not going to be racist, that they are not going to be, you should assume that people are generally good. And if they're not good, that's when you ask them to leave. That's when you don't accept them into your university. Okay? They could have the greatest grades ever. If they're a piece of crap, you probably don't want them in your university. If they lack the moral certitude or the moral foundations that you want in your university, then they probably shouldn't be there. But approving or denying somebody simply because of the color of their skin is stupid. It is exactly what you say you're against, and yet you're promoting it. Anyway. All right, folks, this has been the first segment of the Chris Richman Show for Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. Had to look there, almost said Thursday again. Appreciate you joining us today. We'll be back for the second segment here in the very near future. We look forward to seeing it. See you on the other side.